racism doesn't exist.
Hey y'all, it's your boy Colin. Good news. I know 100% for sure. I just won $10,000.
Midnight clear, a 500 juvenile fight.
Now, listen, I know what you're thinking. This is not like the other times in the past where I thought I had discovered or won or was given a whole bunch of money for no reason whatsoever. Listen, there were good explanations for that. Just, when I sent that Nigerian prince $10,000 so, he could expedite his $8 billion fortune into the United States, and I was going to get $8 million of that. I know that didn't really work out that well because, it was a case of, confusion over the details, but I'm still hoping over that. But this one is a sure thing. It's a big story out of New York City today. It says in the last day or so, before, 24 hours around Christmas, there have been 4 examples of anti-Semitic violence in New York City in the Williamsburg section. It's where the Orthodox Jewish people live, very easily identified by their clothing. Well, the local paper says they can't figure out who's doing it. They don't, they need information to help them. So let's listen to this report. And let's listen to this $10,000 just lying on the ground waiting for you and for me, you and I, to come and just pick it up.
In anti-Semitic violence in the city has multiple communities on alert. There have been 4 attacks since the start of Hanukkah, and the latest incident in Brooklyn was caught on camera. Eyewitness News reporter Derek Waller is live in Crown Heights. Derek?
And Charlene, 4 incidents are now being investigated as possible bias crimes by the NYPD Hate Crimes Task Force. And one of them was actually caught on camera. In that surveillance video, you can see a group of men run up behind the Jewish victim on Union Street here in Brooklyn Tuesday night after 5 p.m. and attack him with a closed fist. Meanwhile, on the same day at East 41st and 3rd Avenue in Midtown, a Florida man was arrested after punching a 65-year-old Jewish man, yelling obscenities and kicking him while he was down. There were also 2 more attacks back here in Brooklyn. 2 children assaulted at a NYCHA complex in Williamsburg. And right here at Kingston and President Streets, where we're standing right now in Crown Heights, a man was attacked at night by a group of teens. They yelled anti-Semitic language and threw a Slurpee at him. That's according to police. And now Mayor de Blasio was speaking out about this. In a tweet, he said it is not enough to condemn anti-Semitism. He said we have to confront it, calling these attacks an attack on all New Yorkers. So now police are not necessarily linking all of these together, but they're certainly urging anyone with information about these to please give them a call. And the Anti-Defamation League, they are also speaking out about this, calling these attacks horrific. And in fact, in one of these incidents, in the most recent one here in Crown Heights, they're offering a $10,000 reward for information leading to an arrest and conviction.
I mean, this is a no-brainer, right? Well, Colin, we don't really have any information about what's going on. The Anti-Defamation League is really on the case now. They're going to crack the case. We got the brightest minds of our generation working on the story of who is assaulting the Jews of Crown Heights. And we'll give you $10,000 if you tell us who's doing it. Okay, I'm ready for my 10 grand now because we've been documenting this. The video just showed it. You can't see the video on this podcast, but here's what's going on. I'm sorry. Okay, we've already done this. How many videos and podcasts, articles, and chapters in my books have we devoted to this? Jewish people are being attacked in that area by black people. Overwhelmingly black on Jewish thing. I've seen a video of one Hispanic, one Arab-looking guy. Hispanic knocked the dude's hat off. The Arab stopped the car, chased him around, and beat the crap out of it. Orthodox. All the rest is black on Jewish. Capiche? And it just and it's it's not like this should be a mystery or a secret. We have the videos. Dozens and dozens and dozens of videos of black people targeting Jewish people in that area. We have videos of black people stepping outside of stopping outside of a synagogue, throwing rocks through the window of the synagogue, and laughing as they run away over and over and over. We've got black leaders in music and in politics and in literature openly saying they're just not that into Jewish people. Hell, they even had a big conference on it a couple years ago, a big sit down. All the big dogs, all the pointy-headed fellas from the music business, the hip-hop business, the rap business, they all got together and decided they weren't going to target and tarnish and marginalize and scorn and hate Jews anymore in their lyrics. And they all stuck their chins in the air and pretended they were morally superior for making such an unbelievable concession.
Being black is exhausting.
Some black people even tried to be helpful. They explained to the Jewish people why black people are so violent to Jewish people. Well, it's because black people feel Jewish people are not sharing their success. That's not what some crackpot on the street corner said in New York City. That's what a city council member of the New York City Council said. Laurie Pumbo said after another, see, I don't want to say a rash, a spike. These never go away. They're just constant. The fellas are constantly attacking Jewish people in New York City. It just doesn't stop. Here's another thing that doesn't stop. The denial, deceit, and delusion from people like the Anti-Defamation League, who are not about Anti-Defamation League. They're just the Jewish auxiliary of the Democratic Party. Absolutely will refuse to call out the people who are creating this violence, mayhem, chaos, destruction in Williamsburg targeted at Jews. I mean, why won't anybody say anything about that? So I'll say it. That's a black on Jewish thing. Can I have my $10,000 now? You guys can feel free to make a report to the police up there. And if you get your 10 grand, let me know. You know, maybe another guy who could get in line for to collect the reward to help that reporter. Man, that reporter was thinking real hard. Help the reporter and help the leaders up there. See, the people in Williamsburg, they know who's committing the violence. They just will not say it. For the life of me, I don't know why nobody's standing up and saying, hey, why are black people targeting Jewish people in this area? Why? I don't know. I mean, I don't understand it. I mean, I remember last summer, there was a fella, you saw this on video. He was like chasing an Orthodox guy around with like a big old stick on video, middle of the day. Next day, a day or so later, they had a couple of leaders, Jewish leaders, business guys on the steps of some community center in that area. They were having a press conference to remind everybody that black people and Jewish people get along just fine. And this is an aberration. And there had like 3 or 4 Jewish people, like 6 or 7 black people surrounding them in the background, the background for the benefit of the cameras. And I'll never forget this. At the exact moment, the guy is going how much the fellas really, really like Jewish people, and we don't have to worry about this black on Jewish violence. You see a black kid like text. He's not even paying attention to this guy. He's like down there texting to his chick or whatever. It's like, oh man, hey, where are we hooking up tonight? Bing, bam, bing, bam, bing, bang, bam, boom. So I know it sounds funny, but history occurs twice. Once is tragedy, once is comedy. When are the Jewish people up there going to stop participating in this tragic farce of denial, deceit, and delusion, pretending that they're just being attacked at random by random people for no reason whatsoever, when we know who it is, we know why they're doing it? Another guy that should be standing in line for this reward, his name is Daniel Greenfield. He wrote an article, I think, for Front Page Magazine the other day. And I want to read a couple excerpts from it because he gets right into this whole black on Jewish thing. Gets it and and he gets all into this black identity extremism thing without pulling any punches, which is extremely unusual. So here's an article, the headline: How Cory Booker Protected the Black Nationalist Killers Behind the Jersey City Anti-Semitic Shooting. So a week or two ago, a couple of black people from that black Hebrews or black Israelites, they call themselves. They hate Jewish people. They hate white people. But until just a couple of days ago, everybody thought they were just kind of harmless cranks. So this guy who calls himself he called himself a black Israelite or whatever. Well, the fact is, he wasn't reading the teachings of Moses. He has spent a good part of his life listening to the teachings of the Reverend Louis Farrakhan. You know, it's easy to dismiss, so easy for a lot of white people to dismiss a Farrakhan, dismiss a Sharpton, dismiss all these other people who appear to us to be charlatans. I'm telling you, the fellas aren't dismissing them. Even Cory Booker here in a minute is going to say, yeah, I've been listening to Farrakhan speeches my whole life. If you hear all of a sudden a bunch of fellas start saying one thing or another about, Jewish people or white people, and it seems kind of peculiar, you could trace it back to a Farrakhan speech he gave 2 weeks ago. It just takes a little while to kind of spread out. Anyway, so Greenfield opens up by reminding people of these guys that went in there and killed these Jewish people. But then he takes it back to last summer. Now, somehow last summer, in some kind of accident of rationality, the FBI had identified black identity extremism as some kind of cause of violence, cause of murder that they were keeping their eyes and ears on. Let's pick up Greenfield's account of that. Much more significantly, Booker had worked to stop the FBI's monitoring of black nationalist terror. Earlier this summer, Booker had grinned at a Senate grilling of FBI Director Christopher Wray. Quote, says Booker, "So you're no longer using the term black identity extremism," said Booker. Booker gloated. "That's great news." Quote, "So nobody's being investigated or surveilled under black identity extremism?" demanded Booker. Answer, nobody, including those nut jobs who shot up the Jewish grocery store. The end of the black identity extremism category, writes Greenfield, was great news for Booker, who along with Senator Dick Durbin had waged a relentless crusade against the FBI for warning against the rising terror threat from black nationalists like the ones who murdered Detective Joseph Seals, Moshe Hirsch Deutsch, Leah Mindel Ferenes, Miguel Jason Rodriguez in the wake of brutal violence by the black Hebrew Israelite terrorists in Jersey City. The philosophers, we'll stop Greenfield for a minute. The philosophers tell us the beginning of wisdom is the definition of terms. So we call this black identity extremism. And when I think of that, I think of just a lot of people. I think of the 5 cops who were killed in Dallas during a Black Lives Matter rally. And of course, the almost every media outlet in the country refused to draw a link between the rally and the murder. No, it's that happened at the same time, the same place, and the guy was a black identity extremism. He hated white people like Black Lives Matter. But those two things had nothing to do with each other, Colin. How could you say that? And then the president of the United States goes down to his eulogy. To this day, I can't imagine why every single person wearing a uniform on that stage didn't get up and walk off the stage in Dallas when the president of the United States went up there and explained to the crowd, to the families of the dead cops, that there's still a lot of white racism out there. We got to fix that, or we're going to see more of this in the future. You know it. And what about all those people marching on the streets of New York? What do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now. The violence against cops, it's not really, the people committing this violence and harassment and threats and murder against cops, they're not really these people that hang around at the library, reading these dense books about black nationalism. But the people who do that on a day-to-day basis, they might not consider themselves a black identity extremist, but they are absolutely being powerfully influenced by the fellas who hate white people, who hate cops. That's part of the DNA of the fellas in this country right now who are confronting cops every day. They just don't like white people, and cops are like white people on steroids. Cops are fighting a proxy battle for us. The fellas have decided that black people are relentless victims of relentless white racism all the time, everywhere. That explains everything. And they're taking that crazy idea out on the cops, who are sitting there just trying to figure out which laws they can enforce and which neighborhoods they can go into without risking their life and limb and their ability to go home at 5 o'clock and say hello to their wife and kids like normal human beings. And so when you talk about black identity extremism, and the FBI goes, "Oh, we're not investigating that anymore. Thank you, Senator Booker, for using your considerable expertise to let us know we were on the wrong track." So Cory Booker, how did he figure this out? Did he go to his old buddy T-Bone? You guys have probably heard the story of T-Bone. Cory Booker used to give a stump speech when he was running for city council in Newark, New Jersey. Then when he was running for mayor of New Jersey, Newark. Part of the stump speech was talking about T-Bone. Guy named T-Bone. So Cory Booker was a child of privilege. His parents were both IBM executives. They lived in they made a lot of money. They lived in a nice place. All was good for Cory. Cory goes to these private schools. He was an accomplished athlete. And, great education, the whole thing. Comes out, wants to be in politics, moved to the hood in Newark, New Jersey to get some street cred. And all of a sudden he starts talking about the guy who's instructing him in the street. T-Bone. T-Bone did this. T-Bone said that. I helped T-Bone. He helped me. These were like detailed stories. You could find them on video. Go find them. Turns out T-Bone was a hoax. Top to bottom, front to back. T-Bone never existed. Cory Booker was just making him up to make Cory Booker sound like he was one of the fellas off the streets, not the privileged kid of a couple of IBM executives. So now Cory walks in with his diploma from the University of T-Bone, telling the FBI director what's up, what's not. And we've got an FBI director who's stupid enough to listen. And so, so when you talk about black identity extremism in this country, we're not talking about people carrying membership cards to a group. No, we're talking about individuals who have decided, for reasons of their own, influenced by the stuff they see in TV, newspapers, radio, black websites, black radio, black movies, in their homes, in their churches, who have decided that white people are just loathsome creatures. We have to fight them every chance we get. Why do you think black people are never pissed off when, a white person gets killed by a black person? It's like, hey, white people deserve it. God, I got to post this over at minds.com/Colin Flaherty. It's a crazy commercial out right now from MasterCard. They're doing one of these, commercials, the MasterCard commercial where you look at something and they go, getting 30% off on a camera? Great. This? Great. Something, priceless. And so this, I forget the exact scenario, but what the exact words were, but the scenario was some goofy old white dude is at the top of a cliff. It actually looked like a cliff near a place where I used to live in Southern California. Look, it's anyway, you're standing up there on the cliff and, he has a camera. The black people have a camera, but because the black people use MasterCard, they got a great deal on all the camera supplies and things that put them in that time, in that space. So the white guy is kind of like, looking around going, what the hell? He's kind of in shock. He backs up, trips over the fence and goes head over keister down the hill, down. And the last 10 feet, is like he's airborne. He falls off the cliff and hits the sand. All of a sudden he gets up going, I'm okay. But the weird thing is the black people are at the top of the cliff, completely and 100% unengaged, uninterested in the white guy who just fell off the cliff. He's standing next to them. They're up there just like looking at their camera, preparing their next shoot. This dude is rolling down a hill. I'm telling you, they pull people off those cliffs with helicopters, and when people fall off those cliffs, they die. They don't just get up and brush the sand off of them. Very difficult to get down to those cliffs. So the fellows are not really that into us. If you want to call that black identity extremism, fine. The Pew Research poll, we did this podcast 2 days ago. Pew Research said 70, 75, 80% of black people are, they think being black is, extremely important or very important to them. It's like it's a central organizing feature of their lives. We've been talking about this for a long time. Like Glenn Singleton's been talking about it in his program, Courageous Conversations, which isn't a conversation and it's not courageous. He's been saying black children talk about their race every day, many times a day. White children, says Dr. Singleton, tend not to do that. So the fellas are just not into us, and it's constantly being reinforced from lots and lots of different places. So if you want to call that black identity extremism, where people pull out a little card and go, yes, I'm a black identity extremist, and my card won't expire until the year October of the year 2020. That's when my dues are due. No, it doesn't really work like that. Let's get back to Greenfield. After the hearing, Booker issued a press release urging, quote, Director Wray to issue updated guidelines notifying law enforcement agencies about the elimination of this misleading designation. What do you want? Dead cops. When do you want it? Now. How about my favorite misleading designation from Killer Mike? When are you niggas going to unite? Kill the police, motherfucker. Yeah, remember, Killer Mike is a leading surrogate for Bernie Sanders. He was in 2016. He is in the year 2000. He is right now. They're huge buddies. And Killer Mike, on his record, asks us, one of his biggest hits, when are you niggas going to unite and kill the police, motherfuckers? Does Killer Mike have a black identity extremist card? No. Would Killer Mike say he's a black identity extremist? No, because people who hold those ideas, those dangerous views, they don't consider themselves extremists. Yeah, they're all about black identity. Of course they are. That's all they ever freaking talk about. Easy to see. Just listen to them. Everybody wants to be the king of all black people, including Killer Mike. Let's get back to Greenfield. At the Senate hearing, Booker followed the same talking points as other defenders of black nationalism did, objecting to Director Wray's suggestion that racist violence was coming from both sides of the spectrum. Quote, that language you said, both sides of the spectrum, the murders at the synagogue, the murders we've seen motivated, you said both ends of the spectrum as if there actually is a movement of black identity extremism. Back to Greenfield. Booker, along with Senator Kamala Harris, Senator Dick Durbin, Senator Chris Coons, that's Delaware boy, I know, Senator Amy Klobuchar, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, and Senator Richard Blumenthal sent a letter to Attorney General Barr this year claiming that, quote, so-called black identity extremists, unquote, was, quote, fabricated term based on a faulty assessment of a small number of isolated incidents. Members of the Congressional Black Caucus. so that's, we're talking about black identity here. Also took issue with the category. In this press release, one of the guys in this caucus, the guy who actually represented the district where the kosher market killing took place, he said he blamed the Republicans for not supporting Democrat gun control proposals. Anyway, so Greenfield just goes on to keep comparing the reality of the world with the fantasy that Cory Booker is trying to create. And it's kind of refreshing, at least, to see somebody actually confront this face to face without flinching, without talking about people of color. Remember, when you see a conservative talk about people of color, that 999 times out of 1,000 is a blatant and bold and disingenuous act of cowardice. People of color, Colin, are attacking the Jewish people in New York City. I've seen that many times from conservatives. Yeah, Asian people in New York City are running around in Williamsburg attacking Jewish people. The Mennonites up there, the Amish are up there. Even the Hispanics are not going around attacking Jewish people. It's a black thing. You wouldn't understand, would you?
It came upon a midnight clear, a 500 juvenile fight. It happened every week this year, a chocolate city night. There's some who say they won't live here, but they're racist and too uptight. The citizens all hide in fear, a chocolate city night. The public subway is suicide, a criminal's delight. Make peace with God, don't go outside, a chocolate city night. But you be safe as long as you don't stop at a traffic light. Upstanding citizens cower and cry, a chocolate city night.
So if you're one of those people who wants to be the king of all black people, by now you've probably figured out that you've got to be on top of this new movement. It's been kind of swirling around in the black media for a couple of years. Now it's breaking into the rest of the mainstream media. You got to be on top of this movement that somehow white people are constantly oppressing black people by messing with their hair, constantly telling them what to do with their hair. And so there's a couple of laws all over, local, state, federal attempts to somehow say that black people's hair is some kind of constitutionally protected thing, that no one may ever tell them how to wear their hair under any circumstances. I mean, this is already being enforced. We had a wrestler a year or so ago, a wrestler, I think it was Iowa, had these really long braids that the umpire at the match said were interfering with his match, forced him to cut the braids, at least some of them. Everybody connected to that little fiasco got fired, and the kid was lionized as another victim, another potential king of all black people someday. And of course, there was that story down in Virginia just a few months ago. The little girl came home from school and her grandmother went to a private school, right? One of these $25,000 a year private schools. I don't know who was paying the $25,000 a year, but anyway, this girl came home from school and she was missing like a quarter of an inch off of one of her braids. And her grandmother noticed it because her grandmother, that was their thing. She took care of her hair every day before sending her off to go party with all the white people. So the kid knew that, the kid knew that the kid's hair, her hair, was her grandmother's pride and joy. And all of a sudden, there's some of it missing. Grandmother wanted to know what was going on. It's like somebody pulled, go into a dragon's lair with a warehouse full of jewelry piled high, like Lord of the Rings. Somebody goes in there and pulls out a ring. The dragon goes, "Hey, who took my ring?" That's what it was like. That's how much hair they snipped. Somebody snipped off. Grandmother goes, "What's up with that?" Little girl goes, "Some white boys, they cut my hair. They held me down." Not only that, they called me a bunch of names and a lot of N-bombs. Also, they stole my lunch and my lunch money, and they've been beating me up. This has been going on for a long time. This is the most exclusive private school in that whole region. And on the word of a 10-year-old girl, the whole world stopped, dedicated to catching the 3 white boys who cut her hair against her will. Well, of course, you all know by now it was a big hoax. But during the hoax, we got exposed to this black hair movement, how white people cannot touch black hair under any circumstances. And now it turns out not just white people, black people can't touch other people's black hair. So black people can wear their hair under any way they want, anytime they want, under any circumstances they want, because that's a natural thing that they are born with.
9-year-old April and 10-year-old Brooke are showing us their ballet moves at home on a night when the sisters should have been performing at the Black Nutcracker.
I feel bad that I can't be participating just because of my hair.
Every year, the Uptown Dance Academy puts on a performance of the Black Nutcracker at the Dempsey Theater. It's an annual fundraiser, and its performers are the young students at the academy.
She said to me, if they show up in braids to the Black Nutcracker, they will not be permitted to participate. It sends a horrific message.
The girls have been at the academy for 3 years under the tutelage of teacher and founder of the school, Robin Williams. While it's always been the rule dancers must secure their hair in a bun for safety reasons, Lisa Skinner says this year her daughters were told no braids, even if it's then tied up in a bun.
They were expelled from the school because I told her I would not adhere to this ludicrous policy. And she said to me, then I will send you a refund of your ticket purchase money.
Skinner says her girls were not allowed in the performance. Earlier this year, a state law went into effect banning discrimination based on hair, which disproportionately affects Black New Yorkers. The law is clear. You cannot treat people differently for wearing their hair naturally.
It's like a black nutcracker. It would be different if it was just like an original nutcracker, but the thing is, braids, like, I really like them. They describe me. My hair is a part of myself, and myself, I was born with this type of hair.
Our efforts to reach Ms. Williams were unsuccessful. Now, just prior to the performance, she posted this statement on her website, stating in part, for a traditional classical ballet production, our policy has always been for all the dancers to wear their hair in an unbraided classical ballet bun.
Braids aren't the issue. It doesn't matter if the hair is braided, just the fact that it's up and secure.
Both Brooke and April say they are not going to let this incident deter them from their love of dance.
You know, it's weird. I'm sitting there just listening to the little girls going, yeah, we were born with that hair braided like that. Yeah, okay. Okay, so I'm probably leading a kind of sheltered life. I've only seen a couple of newborns, coming out within a couple hours of their birth. I was in the room for both of my children's birth. So maybe, like I said, maybe I'm like behind the times here. But are black children being born with braids? That's like a natural thing. And you can wear those braids. You can wear your hair anytime you feel like, any way you want, for any reason you want. So if you go into the military and they go, high and tight, soldier, you look at your drill sergeant and say, oh, No, you got it wrong. I'm allowed to wear my hair any way I feel like because, everybody, I was born with this hair. I mean, look, if you want to let your freak flag fly in your own private life, go ahead. But to make this like some major civil rights issue, that's it? That's what we're down to now? Are we running out of issues that we have to make the hair of little girls a stop the world moment? When a dance teacher says, I am going to tell you a whole bunch of things in this class. And in your performance, I'm going to tell you what shoes to wear, clothes to wear. I am going to insist on how you dance this dance. Isn't it weird you have a black nutcracker? Isn't that weird? Is that black identity extremism? We're going to have a black nutcracker here. Anyway, so the teacher could tell those little black girls and her black mom, the black teacher could tell them every single thing to do when she's with them together, except for one thing. She may not tell them one thing about the hair of those little girls, because that's a civil rights issue, and I march with Martin, and I'm not going to put up with that. Hey, let's face it. Sometimes the fellas and lovely ladies can get a little grumpy on us.
This woman is apparently so fed up with Christmas, police say she beat someone up over it. Henrietta Bush is facing an assault charge. It's because someone told her Merry Christmas today in Avondale. Police say Bush responded by repeatedly punching that person in the face. Bush, who's been charged with assault and menacing in the past, will face a judge tomorrow.
You know, we don't know much about the victim of that thing we just heard. Merry Christmas, bing, bam, boom, punching her in the face. I don't know if it was white or whatever, if the victim was white or whatever. But that's not the first time we've seen somebody like that get the crap beat out of them just for wishing somebody well. The first time I saw it was Chicago. They had Chicago Bulls used to have a player, the basketball team. His name was Yannick Noah. His father was actually a famous tennis player. So Yannick was a pretty good basketball player. He starts a foundation, hires some local chick in Chicago. It's all about helping the little fellas and lovely ladies get their lives together, try to convince them not to kill each other, try to stay out of, the usual stuff, but all constantly reminding them that because they are black, they are victims of relentless white racism. Anyway, so he goes out and hires some white chick to be the head of his foundation. And this chick, she lives in like a white neighborhood in Chicago. She's walking her dog one morning or something, going to her car, sees a couple fellas coming by. She goes, "Good morning." Because she's down with the cause. She thought the cause was down with her. The fellas that she said good morning to turned around and beat the holy hell out of her. They're just not that into us. Here's a weird story. Out of Lynchburg, I thought it was West Virginia, but I guess it's Virginia. Lynchburg, Virginia. And I had kind of trouble keeping track of what was going on here, but here's what it was. A couple of fellas told a white kid they had a gun for sale. And they produced a picture of the gun that they got off of Google. And they said, "Yeah, come on over to our house. We'll sell you the gun." The white kid goes over to the house where the fellas are, and there is no gun. It's a robbery. And somehow, I don't know if the white kid already had a gun or he took the gun from the fellas. That's not clear. But the white kid ended up shooting two of the fellas, killing one, wounding the other. On this witness stand, the kid who got wounded, he was part of the robbery, helping set up the robbery. He got up there and he said the white kid got mad, and that left his buddy who got shot no alternative but to attack the white kid. So the white kid sitting there fighting for his life during a robbery. And let's see what happened.
Prosecutors in Lynchburg are speaking out a day after a teenager was acquitted of murder. Austin Rozdilski was found not guilty of 3 felony charges, including second-degree murder. The 17-year-old testified that he shot and killed Drayon Browley and injured another teen during an alleged gun sale earlier this year. The city's top prosecutor says the outcome was disappointing.
We would like to see him get the maximum sentence here, given what he did in this case. But we are stuck with the jury's verdict. We have to accept that verdict. This would not be the first time that we've had a disappointing result in a case.
The Campbell County teen was found guilty of unlawful wounding. He is facing a sentence of up to 5 years.
Yeah, all what's happened is, the jury saw exactly what happened. They saw it better than the prosecutor. These prosecutors, Thomas Wolfe they called white defendants. They call a white person the biggest dream of every prosecutor, because you go to law school, you think, I'm going to become a social justice warrior, except I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to become a prosecutor and put away the people who are ruining the city for the rest of us. And that's what you believe. Then all of a sudden you're a prosecutor for 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, and you realize you spent all your life putting black people in prison. So when a white guy walks into your realm, the great white defendant, people pop champagne because it's like, finally, we get to prosecute a white guy. Luckily, the jury saw through that fiction, and in parts of Virginia, not anywhere near Washington, D.C., if you try to rob somebody and assault somebody and they fight back and kill you, well, that's on you.
And there's a whole generation, I say this, I said this, for apartheid South Africa. I said this for my own, community in the South. There are still generations of people, older people, who were born and bred and marinated in it, in that prejudice and racism, and they just have to die.
And we've been getting a lot of really great letters lately. These letters are, man, every single one of these people could write a book. It would just be a book about their personal experience. And let me just give you a reminder how to write these letters, even how to write a book if you want to. Just tell your story. We don't need explanations. We don't need large sociological pictures from 30,000 feet. If you're a teacher, tell me what it's like to be a teacher for 1 year in the life of a teacher in a black chocolate school. Just tell me what happened. Don't read anybody's minds. Tell me what they said. Tell me what they did. Tell me what their parents did. Tell me what they said. Tell me how they defied you and threatened you and attacked you. Tell me how your principal didn't give a crap. That's how you write a letter. That's how you write a book on this topic. Just the facts.
The question of the day is, with all the injustices, the harassment, and the aggression that we see toward black people every day, do you feel unsafe around white people?
Here's a letter. Here's a family letter. Okay, Colin, my sister was a school psychologist who works with emotionally and mentally impaired kids in blank. She says the vast majority of her clients are only temporarily lose control of themselves due to some circumstances beyond the teacher's control. We're talking about almost all fellas here. She treats the kids right after these events and before they happen, if and only if the kid is reported to be having a problem. For the vast majority of the time, she says, restorative justice works. She also says that the PTSD teachers need to get some workman's comp time and time off with an adult psychologist. Our biggest argument this Christmas Day was about diplomas. She said that even if a kid can't read, they should be given a diploma for putting in 13 years of work because they may never learn to read. This makes them feel better, should lead to less violence, knowing they have this life accomplishment. She says that if her in-depth amount of analysis was done for every student and if everyone who needs one-on-one teaching and one-on-one counseling was given, there would be fewer problems in school and more graduates who could pass the tests. She says she has her own work to prove it down in Texas. So that's one of our viewers talking about his sister, one of our platform consumers. We have a school psychologist saying, yeah, give the kid a diploma for 13 years of work. Isn't that the point? 13 years of being in a system that you just didn't benefit from for one reason or another. Maybe it's because you had lousy teachers. Maybe it's because you had lousy curriculum. Whatever. Teacher after teacher after teacher. I was talking to a 9th grade biology teacher from Baltimore not too long ago. He/she said they want us to teach 9th grade biology to people that can't read over a 3rd grade level. By the way, a 3rd grade level at public school, that basically means you can read an emoji on a good day. Boy, the people here at the tip of the spear. If you work as a teacher or a psychologist, you only have one or two choices. You have wrapped yourself up in denial, deceit, and delusion as a defense mechanism, a survival mechanism. So you can at least pretend that all the bullshit that you're giving these kids is helping them out when it's not. But at least you go home at night and go, yeah, I gave that kid a high school diploma, even though he can't read over a 3rd grade level and he's not really into schoolwork. He's not into white people. He's not into teachers. All he's into is music and smoking weed. Let's give him a diploma. Give him a little piece of paper that will validate all the other BS he's been doing for 13 years. Yeah, no, that doesn't validate the kid. That validates your denial, deceit, and delusion. But there are teachers out there who this is such a strong thing that they just can't ignore. Mostly a lot of teachers, when this happens, This begins to happen with them when they experience their first threat of violence, their first act of violence directed at them. Yeah, that's an eye-opener. Then they look around and they see what they are actually in, sometimes for the first time. And they feel like they're drowning. Like, how did I get here? What am I doing here? What are my options? How do I get out of here? How do I pay my rent, my mortgage? Good Lord, the school district, because I came here, they said it was an underserved school. And if it's an underserved school, that means you get a break on your student loans, a big break if you hang around there for a couple of years, and all of a sudden these people are in there for a couple of weeks and they go, oh no, I can't do this. St. Louis, 40% of the first year teachers quit. I think most of them don't even last the year. They get into these hellholes, and what they learned in college, so totally different than the reality. In college, it was all about, well, we're just going to open these young black minds, sprinkle some white goodness in there. And just like Michelle Pfeiffer in one of those movies that every movie star makes about how they're the white teacher that saves the black schools with their white goodness. Well, that's what you're going to do. And they're going to love you for that. No, that's a fairy tale. It's a myth. It does not happen. There are no principals walking around with baseball bats threatening the bullies and the violent felons who are in the schools, ruining the schools. No, those people do not exist. What exists is a culture of violence, mayhem, dysfunction, chaos, scorn, rising to hatred for learning and reading and writing and arithmetic, because those are just tools of the white man. When do I get to go to dance class and smoke weed? It's funny. I've seen hundreds of these videos, right? It's like the local TV station will go, and now we're going out to Jackson School, which has had its troubles in the past. But one teacher has learned how to connect with the students, and they're all like excited to be in school. Then you cut to the auditorium, and there's like 50 kids dancing. And I'm sitting there going, okay, this teacher is teaching black children to dance. Well, they already knew how to dance. They don't know how to read, write, and do the numbers. But on and on it goes. Where it stops, nobody knows. How about a story from a Lyft driver? We could do Lyft driver stories all night and day. Here's one. Hey, Colin, just thought I'd click this and made me remember something that happened to me the other day. I'm a Lyft driver, and I was picking up a person at McDonald's. It wound up being 6 kids who wanted to get into a 4-passenger car. They were minors. And first of all, I can't take more than 4 passengers. I told them I could only take 4 people, and they said they could sit on each other's laps. They started gathering around the car, and none of them would back off as if they were going to leave 2 people stay behind. I just started to drive away, and one kid was holding onto my window, running with the car, yelling, "Hey, my nigga," over and over and over. He threw a soda at my car. In order for me to get paid, I have to wait in the area for 5 minutes. LOL. So I drove around, and they kept chasing me. One kid picked up a giant rock that he could barely carry, and I'm lucky he couldn't throw it because I think he would have put it through my windshield. Finally, the 5 minutes was up. I got paid my $5. I got a text from a person who ordered the car saying, "Why did you leave my child?" It's amazing how the fellas can turn something as simple as getting a ride into a life and death situation. Overall, thank you for that letter. Love the letters. This is a great letter. It's just a nice, simple letter, right? This happened to me. This happened to me. We've got a listener up in Philly, he calls himself Shamrock. So I guess he's of Irish descent, lives in Philly. So he's sending me these great stories. Sometimes he sends me so much stuff. I mean, it's like I really wish people like Shamrock would start their own channel. They've got an eye for picking this stuff out. Shamrock's really good at picking out the mass shootings. Every once in a while, the mass shootings rise up again, almost spontaneously. And I just know that somewhere somebody is saying on some channel, they're saying, mass shooting is a white thing. And according to Mother Jones magazine, 56% of mass shooters are white. Yes, there have been, in the last year, we've had 19 mass shootings, and 56% of those people are white. And I don't really, a lot of times I really don't know where to start with people like that. If you tell me there's been only 19 mass shootings in the last year, I will tell you there's been 19 mass shootings in the last 96 hours. Mass shootings, 3 or more, even 4 or more. But when we see funny numbers, if you start looking at the funny numbers, you see 2 things. One, they conflate, an academic word, they conflate, they mix up mass killings with mass shootings. But then they go through and then they start playing all these funny games with the numbers. They'll pull out something they call gang shootings. They pull out drug shootings. They pull out this. They pull out that. They basically pull out every category from the numbers for reasons I don't quite know. And the only thing is left is white people. The rare example of a white person involved in a mass shooting. 75% of mass shooters are black. That's 4 or more. If you go 3 or more, it's over 90%. And that's without fudging the numbers, playing silly games, putting some in, leaving some out. No, it's like 3 or more, 4 or more. If you do that, who are you? What are you up to? Who are you, white or are you black? And so we've been getting a lot of stuff on Twitter last couple days from a couple people going, yeah, Colin, 56% of white mass shooters are white. Okay, but here's what kind of annoys me just a little bit. What people who are big listeners to this podcast, big followers on Twitter, when they're so it's weird. Like some people are so eager to accept the phony baloney numbers, and they're sitting there going, well, even if it's 56% white, what about the per capita? That makes it equal. And then the people are very proud because, if your population is 56% and you commit 56% of the mass killings, it's like an average number. It's like you're doing it in proportion to your population. And the same thing, it's like 14% are black people. Then they go, well, look at that. If black people are just average mass shooters. I don't know why people who follow this channel are so eager, so desperate to seek approval from people who come on my Twitter stream, my Minds.com, my videos, my podcast. They come here to lie their asses off about the level of black crime, violence, criminality, mayhem, violence, destruction, and mass shooting. And they sit there and they take their funny numbers and then they start doing the massaging trick. And when they're done massaging it, they hold it up and go, see? No, we don't do the massaging thing. The mass shooting is not a per capita number. It's not 75% per capita. It's 75% of the gross. 75% of the mass shooters in this country, when they find out who's holding the gun, it's a fella. Another thing I don't buy is, well, look at the number of people arrested. When you do the number of people arrested, all of a sudden it drops down. The percentage of black mass shooters drops down. Still very high, but it drops down. I get, so a lot of the numbers are, so it's not just a question of being convicted. The cops have a category, they call it, when they do crime rate, they consider a crime cleared, even though somebody's not convicted. They kind of know what happened, then they call it clearing it. That goes into the crime rate. If somebody does a drive-by in South Chicago and shoots 4 fellas at 2 a.m., and the cops from Chicago go, yeah, we're looking for black people who did that. We know the car. We know who was in it. Well, I'm not going to leave those people off of the numbers. And so listen, if you guys are interested in being part of this on any level, and you want to spread the word on Twitter and on Facebook and on your email and in your circles, just don't be dumb about it. Just know your facts and don't give up the facts. When some fool walks in and goes, Mother Jones said 56% of mass shooters are white, and you're sitting there going, oh, well, if Mother Jones said it, I'm not going to look at that article. I'm not going to even read it for 1 minute to see how flimsy those numbers are. You're just sitting there going, yeah, okay, that's cool. I'll just use those numbers instead of the 75% black numbers from the New York Times. Yeah, even the New York Times was astonished at their own study. But when the people come in And they go, yeah, 56% of the mass shooters are white, Colin. Here's what they never do. They never do what we've done this year at least 10 times. It got to be too much work. I was doing it every week. And Shamrock was really helping me out with that every week. We just looked at every example around the country, as many as we could find. I think we pretty much scoured all of them. It's hard to keep something out of the paper where 3 or 4 people get shot. And we looked at them all. So if 3 or 4 people get shot in a let-out fight in a black club on video, they might not be arrested, but we sure as hell know who did it. And every week for 10 weeks, it was just bam, 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 80, 85, 90% of the mass shooters were black. And we were documenting it, every single case. If I saw a white guy, I was like, wow, how did he get in there? If I saw an Hispanic guy, even that was surprising. But they snuck in there every week. When we were getting 20, 25, 30, 40 mass shootings a week. They're not hard to find. So we're not going to convince the trolls to do any research, but I'm saying if you feel like you want to be a person that could speak about this with authority, at least know something, okay? Just go Google it. 3 people shot. You have to use the word 3 people shot. If you say 3 shot, you'll get a bunch of TV stories, camera shots. 3 people shot, 4 people shot, 5 people shot, 6 people shot, 7 people shot, triple shooting, quadruple shooting, quintuple shooting. Tell me what you find. So Shamrock's doing here. I'll just read some of the headlines. In Germantown, 3 men shot in Germantown. And then a little bit further down, 2 people shot. A little bit further down, violent start to the holiday week where they're shooting children in Philadelphia. On and on and on. People burning houses in Philly, cracking down on the malls in Cherry Hill. Fella kills his wife, burns the car. Listen, if you burn a car, that pretty much means it's murder. 7 shot in Baltimore. Now here's one I haven't checked. Somebody check this. In a Thai restaurant in, I think this is in St. Paul. Thai restaurant, 8 shot in Minnesota in a Thai restaurant, all Oriental victims. I don't know what that was about. 7 shot in Mississippi, 4 shot in Jersey City, 3 shot in Des Moines, 3 shot in Washington, D.C., on and on and on. These are just a couple of days. These are just a 24, 48-hour period right around Christmas. This is just Shamrock up there reading his mail, looking at it. It's not like he's devoting 24/7 to this. It's like this is naturally just coming to him, and he goes, hey, Colin, add this to your list. If we're going to do the heavy lifting here and remind people of the greatest lie of our generation, I want you to do your part if you decide to do it. I'm not asking you to go out there and make this part of your life and wave around the flag, but if you're going to be part of our friends, our allies, our timeline, if you want to be part of what we're talking about, exposing the greatest lie of our generation, I'm going to ask you to grow a pair. And if you don't feel like you can do that for whatever reason, then just don't. Just be quiet. It's better to be quiet than spread something that's not true. Colin, people of color are responsible for mass shootings. No, that's a lie. You know that. I just said that's a lie too. All right, I got one more great letter here from a teacher, but I think I'm going to hold that off till tomorrow. So many letters, so many victims, so many videos, so many 911 calls, so many witnesses, so many crimes happening where people don't report them. They just feel like, what's the use of reporting them? The cops aren't going to come to my house. They're not going to catch them anyway. Why do I want to waste my time? I want to thank all you guys for all your fantastic well wishes during the Christmas season. All the cards and letters you sent me, all the shekels you dropped into my PayPal account. Thank you so much. Just kind of it's probably a terrible time to remind everybody of it, but we're not NPR. We don't, stop what we're doing for a week at a time and just do nothing but remind you how to send us money or the world is going to end. No, I just kind of gently remind you from time to time that this enterprise exists between you and me on a very personal level. And I'm happy to be in it with you and if you take personal responsibility for making sure this podcast goes on, even if sending me $2 in an envelope, or if you can do more than that, do as much as you feel comfortable doing. That's what keeps us going. And it's not, I say that the risk of sounding disingenuous. The money is important. Yeah, we gotta, we need money to keep this thing going. Need money to keep good old Colin going until the New York Police Department sends me that $10,000 for telling them who's responsible for all this anti-Semitic violence in New York City. But while I raced from my mailbox every day, I appreciate your continued generosity to what we're doing here. I happen to think it's important. If you do too, I hope you will continue to support what we're up to, even if that does make the black kids angry.
We three teens just got in a fight, robbed a random dude that was white, savage beating, victim bleeding, all in the broad daylight. Oh, we're just not that into you, turtle young or old or Jew, veteran, woman, man, kitty, teacher, Asian too. Don't bother watching TV, they'll just deny and lie and deceive. White people are racist, that's what we made you all believe. Oh, we're just not that into you. No, this isn't deja vu. Gay or straight or Eskimo, don't forget the mailman too. Gay or straight or Eskimo, don't forget the mailman too.
Racism doesn't exist.
Crime is the new black entitlement.
Racism doesn't exist.
Crime is the new black entitlement.
Racism doesn't exist.
Crime is the new black entitlement.
Racism doesn't exist.
Crime is the new black entitlement.